We're about to listen to a presentation on Japanese traditional ukiyo-e and the importance of the painter and printmaker Katsushika Hokusai in this artistic field. Hokusai is regarded as the most important artist in the history of Japan. He lived between the 18th and 19th century, although his influence goes well beyond that. Hokusai was a watchful and sensitive observer of the natural world. Nature was a major source of artistic inspiration for him. He constantly copied from nature, depicting insects, bushes, birds, or trees. Hokusai was fascinated by nature. It was his teacher, a guide, and a master. He was able to grasp the explicit and secret beauty of nature and carefully exhibited it in his works. Part of his success is based in the artistic recreation of the natural world in his works. In a quickly developing city such as Tokyo, he was especially attracted by the Mount Fuji, located next to the capital, a volcano which is beautiful and threatening at the same time. On the other hand, Hokusai reflected in his sketches and paintings on the place that human beings had to occupy in nature. People needed to learn to love and appreciate the beauty of nature. Living in peace was Living in peace with it was basic to human progress. But as fragile common beings, we also have to understand the power of nature, its uncontrollable and at times dangerous vigor. People are sometimes shown in his works as struggling, persevering against natural forces. In short, Hokusai believed that the human race had to appreciate nature's beauty, but also show understanding and respect for it. Protecting the environment, we are also protecting ourselves, and being aware of the wild energy and power of nature is key to our survival on this planet. Therefore, industrial and technological development needs to go hand in hand with an appropriate coexistence with the natural world.
Hello there. My name is Juan Antonio Sanchez. I have a PhD in English from the University of Alcalá in Spain, and I am here today to talk to you about Katsushika Hokusai, manga, comics, anime, and its relationship with the contemporary arts in Japan. So let me just uh, share with you my screen, okay, so that we can begin the presentation. The name of the presentation is Katsushika Hokusai, the first mangaka, right? And I would like to begin this presentation with just a quote, okay, that I got very recently, that I read very recently in a magazine. And it says, beginning with the late 2010s, manga started massively outselling American comics. In 2020, the North American manga market was valued at almost $250 million. According to MPD Bookscan, manga made up 76% of overall comics and graphic novel sales in the United States in 2021. Okay, this gives you an idea of the importance, okay, that manga has today worldwide. So the question will be, how can a single country basically take over the industry in comics in the whole world? Okay, there are many countries like Spain, Italy, I mean, whose um, mm, percentage, okay, of selling of comics worldwide is really small. Okay, but Japan has managed to do that. Okay, why? Okay, we're trying to discuss this question, throughout our presentation. So, contemporary manga. Contemporary manga was born, okay, according to critics, with this man. Okay, I don't know if you are familiar with this guy, but he's called, okay, he's considered by name, by many, the god of manga, right? His name is Osamu Tezuka, right? And this book that you see on your screen, New Treasure Island, is supposed to be the first manga comic, the first contemporary manga comic ever published, okay, in 1947. Okay, so if you haven't heard about Osamu Tezuka, I really advise you to research about him, to read some of his books, right? He has books such as, for example, Hitler, Gandhi, which are very, very interesting, right? Okay, and as I say, he's considered as the best, the best mangaka, okay, the best writer and drawer of manga ever, right? So, New Treasure Island is a kind of a combination of the narrative by Stevenson, Treasure Island, and a heavy influence of Disney, right? And in the birth of contemporary manga, we find this great, okay, influence of Walt Disney, right, and of Western animation, right? In this slide, you may see one of the first famous characters drawn, okay, and invented by Osamu Tezuka, Astro Boy. And you can also see an image of Mickey Mouse, okay? I have always wondered why manga and anime characters, Japanese characters, had such big eyes, right? Okay. And here you have the reason, okay? The important, okay, impact that Walt Disney had on Osamu Tezuka, right? Um, some also say that some other Disney characters had such an influence on Tezuka that he adopted, okay, the facial characteristics for his characters. Okay, he was a passionate fan of Bambi when the movie, okay, the animated movie came out. Okay, Osamu Tezuka was just a kid and he saw the movie dozens of times. Okay, another possible influence for this characteristic facial eyes, okay, of manga and anime is the uh, very popular character of Betty Boop. Okay. Um, by the way, in case you didn't know, okay, those peculiar eyes, okay, were copied from an actress, okay, Hollywood actress called Helen Kay. So this is the beginning of manga in Japan, okay, after the Second World War. And this is just an image of a characteristic, okay, manga female character, okay, manga anime female character. Now, this is ukiyo-e, okay? This is a print of ukiyo-e. And the basic subject matter of this presentation today. So the question is, how do we go from this 17th century image to this contemporary presentation of the female figure and face? Okay, there are many reasons, okay, that explain this evolution, this change, okay, but we can begin by giving some arguments, okay. In this ukiyo-e print, okay, you notice a narrative style, okay. It's just a single image, right? Okay, it's not a sequential, okay, series of images, right? But in the image that you see, okay, you have different characters, right, doing different things, okay, and the creator, the artist, just captures one moment, okay, but there is a before and an after, right? Okay, and as I say, each of the characters is doing an independent thing. Okay, so there is a quality of narration. Okay, in ukiyo-e prints. Okay, that is very similar to what we find in contemporary manga. A second element that we should take into account is the drawing style. Okay, this is not a drawing style similar to what we find in Europe. Okay, much more realistic, right? It has a cartoonish flavor. This could be like a cartoon of the 17th century. Okay, and it's kind of a caricature, right? Okay, so this also approximates, okay, this kind of images to contemporary manga. Now, ukiyo-e. We need to explain what ukiyo-e is or was. Well, actually, is because there are also contemporary ukiyo-e artists. But basically, okay, the beginning, okay, ukiyo-e was an artistic movement that took place in Japan from the 1600 to the 1800 during the Tokugawa shogunate, okay, also called the Edo period, right? At the time, Japan was closed down to the world, right? Okay, it didn't have any kind of relationship, political or social relationship with any country other than China and Holland, right? Okay, and at that time, an important social and economic phenomenon took place, and it was the rise and growth of a middle class, right? And this middle class, right, wanted to be self-represented in images. Remember that at this time there was no photography, okay? And they wanted to see themselves involved in work, okay? They wanted to see the activities, okay, that they attended or they worked on, okay? I'm talking about music, theater, and so on and so forth, okay? So some generations of artists, okay, um, appeared, okay, who represented all these situations and circumstances just that I just mentioned. Okay, those were the ukiyo-e artists. Okay, they were painters, right? But mainly they worked with woodblock prints, right? Okay, why? Because that way, okay, from just one single work of art, they could make hundreds and hundreds of copies, right? And those middle class people, okay, individuals could buy them, right? For this rising middle class, it was not easy to buy just a work of art, right? Okay, but they could afford buying these prints, right? So I'm going to show you the way these prints, okay, these characteristic prints of ukiyo-e were made. Okay, you need the wood carver, right? Okay, and you needed a printer other than the artist. Okay, you also needed a publisher, okay, who published the book, okay, and tried to advertise it, right? Okay, in agreement with the main author, right? In this series of drawings, you can see how an ukiyo-e print was produced, right? Number one or two, the original piece drawn by the artist, okay, was pushed onto a wood block, right? Number 3 and 4, okay, the wood carver would carve, okay, the original outline of the drawing, okay. And from number 5 to number 6, 7, okay, the printer would add the colors, right, and do printings, okay, on independent sheets of paper, okay, of the work of art, right? Number 8, okay, you have the final product, okay? So this is the technique that this artist used, right? At the beginning, the art of ukiyo-e was simple, okay? It was in black and white, okay? Hishikawa Morinobu, okay, in the 1660s, in the second half of the 17th century, is considered the first great artist of ukiyo-e, okay? Here, for example, you have a typical print of that time, right? This is a samurai and his lover, right, in a kind of loving or erotic pose, right? And as you can see, this could be like as I told you before, like a cartoon, okay, right? Just to relate this image to contemporary manga, okay? A cartoon of the 17th, the 1600, right? Okay, and um, and also bear in mind the narrative, okay, narrative quality that this print had at the time, right? Here, for example, you have a group of courtesans, right? And again, each character is doing uh, uh, his or her own thing, okay? I mean, it's an image in movement. There is action, all right? Okay, all right. At that time, courtesans, actors, okay, were represented very often. Why? Because in Edo is the old name for Japan, okay, um, there was a district called the district of Yoshiwara, okay, where this middle class that we talked recently, we just talked about, okay, okay, in Japanese, the middle class that we talked about, okay, including merchants, working class people, and so on, right? Okay, were called chonin, right? So in this district of Yoshiwara, okay, it was the where the red light neighborhood was located, and also the place where theatrical shows, okay, took place, and music shows and so on. Everything linked to this hedonistic lifestyle of the churning, okay, of the new merchants who were acquiring, okay, more and more economic weight. Okay, at the time, the merchants, okay, in the shogunate occupied the bottom layer of the social scale, right? Um, uh, in the typical hierarchy of the shogunate, okay, first, okay, at the top, okay, was the emperor, then the shogun, the samurais, right, the farmers, and the bottom, okay, the merchants, okay. Why? Because according to the beliefs of the time, dealing with money and so on was not so well considered, right? Okay, but the merchants were rising economically, and they were having more power in terms of money, right? And that's why they could afford, okay, to create this um, new culture, okay, of artistic invention, okay, of shows, okay, etc., that were so important and it was where, okay, the ukiyo-e artistic movement flourished, okay, during the 16, 17, and 1800, right? Um, uh, some decades later, okay, ukiyo-e evolved, okay, and the color was added to the prints, okay. We're talking about the Nishikie, right? Basically, Nishikie were ukiyo-e prints with color, right? So the first person, okay, the first artist to add full colors to his prints, to his images, was Suzuki Harunobu in the 1770s, right? Again, you have here um, um, two young women. One is reading kind of a letter to the other, right? We don't know what will happen next. In this particular picture, in this particular print, you can see the interaction, okay, interaction between the image, okay, and the words at the top, okay, such as any manga vignette has, right? Um, so we're talking about Nishikie, right? Ukiyo-e prints with colors. And at the beginning, like the most popular subject matters were the representation of actors. Okay, for example, we have the artist called Sharaku, active just 1 year. We don't know very much about Sharaku, okay, but we know that he was active during just 1 year, and he was famous for his realistic painting, not idealistic, okay, images of actors, such as they were shown, in previous work of arts in the 1600s and so on, but a realistic, okay, um, portrait of actors, right? Other famous subject matter of those times were the representation of courtesans, right? That were basically prostitutes, right? Okay, geishas, courtesans, and also women in general. Utamaro, okay, um, um, one of the first masters of ukiyo-e, was famous for his representations, his portraits of women, right? And this peculiar, okay, this particular way of presenting women, okay, is basically with these long faces, right? Okay, and the hairstyle, okay, their particular dresses and so on. It's the image that Western, okay, the Western world, okay, has associated um, to the portrait of women in Japanese art, okay, throughout the decades. So Tamaro was a really skillful artist, okay, portraying women, okay, and he has very many interesting um, um, images, right, creations done in that line, right, and we just have time to talk very briefly about ukiyo-e, since we just have like roughly 1 hour or a little bit more than an hour to do this presentation. But I just wanted to to encourage you to go on studying, reading, and having a look at this world of QA, because it's huge. There are very many artists, very many good creators, right? Very many good painters, right? That are worth following, right? Um, the great master of QA, the most important of them all, was Katsushika Hokusai, right? I'm sorry, there is a mistake. There is a Hokusai, not Hakusai, right? Okay, so Hokusai contributed to the development, okay, of um, of um, of ukiyo-e throughout his lifetime. He was born in 1760. He died in 1849. Right. Mm, for example, he expanded, right, the number of subject matters, right, that were typically done, okay, using this technique. For example, he added, okay, the creation of landscapes, right? Here you have an example with the bridge. Okay, bridges were very common in ukiyo-e landscapes, and basically um, Hokusai is well known for many of his works of art, but there are a couple of prints that have become iconic, right? And probably um, there are some of the most famous Japanese work of art in all its history. And when we talk about the Great Wave of Kanagawa, right, we're referring to one of the most celebrated pieces of art in all the history of world art, right? Okay. The Great Wave of Kanagawa, right? Why do you think this print has become so famous? This print is considered one of the absolute masterpieces in the um, in the history, okay, of world art. If you just watch, take a look at this image, well, you see a wave, okay, a great wave, okay, rising, and there are some fishermen apparently there and so on, okay. But you should like take a closer look, okay, at the picture, okay. This image, okay, this print is part of a series of ukiyo-e prints that Hokusai made. And the series is called 36 Views of Mount Fuji. Okay? 36 Views of Mount Fuji. All the prints in the series represent the Mount Fuji, right? From different perspectives, right? And in different situations. Mount Fuji, as you all know, is a volcano, okay, situated in Tokyo, right? And it's a very, very, very well-known mountain in Japan, right? So in the background of this print, you can see the Mount Fuji, right? But it's interesting because although this is supposed to be a presentation, okay, of an image, okay, about Mount Fuji. What you really see, right, in this image is what really impacts you is the wave, right? Okay. Now take a closer look at the wave, okay, and see how the foam takes the form of claws, right? Okay, so the this monster wave or this wave monster is about to fall on the defenseless fisherman, right? So basically, this is a moment, okay? This is a second, okay, just before a great tragedy is going to happen, okay? And we need to refer again to this narrative style of ukiyo-e that we mentioned before, right? So it's kind of like the fight between man and nature, right? Okay, and in this case, right, some 20 or 30 men are going to probably die, right? They cannot compete with nature, right? So it's a dramatic moment, right? So, and what does the Mount Fuji has to do with this situation? Well, Mount Fuji, in a sense, it's also a volcano. Okay, so we're dealing here with mortality and immortality, right? A volcano causes deaths too, right? From a legendary point of view, okay, the elixir of life in Japanese culture, right? Okay, in Japanese literature, right, was deposited, right, in Mount Fuji, right? So basically, the whole print can be interpreted as a reflection, okay, about death, life, mortality, immortality, okay, this everlasting fight between man and nature, etc., etc. Okay, take a look also at the composition of the image, right? Because we have Mount Fuji in the background, right? But in the foreground, we have a wave which is very similar to Mount Fuji. So basically, you have two mountains there, and the Great Wave can be also seen as a mountain, right? So it's it's a great, okay, design that we have here of the print, right? And with this bottom, okay, reflection about life and death, right? So this is the most famous print by Hokusai. But remember, okay, Hokusai was an artist that produced 30,000 works of art during his lifetime. So I mean, there is a lot to see, you know, mm, about or by Hokusai that may interest you. All right. Of course, the Great Wave has been used by some other artists, right? Okay, and it's a motif that has been presented in all objects, okay, throughout the decades, right? Even in a banknote, in a Japanese banknote, and in all situations and circumstances that you may think of, right? Um, I just wanted to tell you that Hokusai used some other times this motive of the wave, right? For example, this artistic motive. Here you have another print by Hokusai where the foam, okay, at the top of a wave transforms into birds, basically, right? And that's a nice and artistic tool, let's say, that Hokusai uses, right, in this particular print. Another very famous Hokusai image is this one. Also, it also belongs to the series of 36 views on Mount Fuji. Okay, this print is called Fine Wind, Clear Morning, right? And it is popularly known as Red Fuji, right? So on the left, okay, to the left of the image, you can see like this placid, right, tranquil notion of the sky with the clouds, right, and a gradation of blues, right, because it's the sunrise, right. So at the top is like the blue is darker, okay. At the bottom is lighter, right. And on the other side is basically the opposite, right? Okay, the volcano, with the snow and with this red, okay, fiery notion, right? Okay? And you would you might wonder why red volcano. I mean, there is no a red mountain, okay? But when the sun, okay, projects onto the Mount Fuji, it acquires this red, okay, shade, okay, and this is what um, Hokusai is portraying, okay, on a realistic and also on a symbolic level, right? So Hokusai has other views, okay, of Mount Fuji that have become famous, right? And some of them are really interesting to see, right? As with as what happens with the great wave of Kanagawa, he uses the Mount Fuji sometimes as just an excuse, right, to present another situation. Okay, he's a master in presenting everyday situations, right? Okay, from an original point of view, right? So here in this other print, okay, of 36 views on Mount Fuji, right? You see on the background, Mount Fuji, but really what most of the print most of the print is occupied by some laborers, okay, working on a building, right? Okay, with using wood, right? Um, one of the most relevant and important series, okay, of work of art, okay, are a collection of books that Hokusai published, right, in his 50s, right. These are uh, mm, mm, drawings that Hokusai made, right, to help uh, people who wanted to learn to draw, right? So they were basically images that people would reproduce at home, okay, and in order to self teach them to draw, okay. But and they are also masterpieces, okay. Hokusai basically um, mm, copies, from reality, and he copies everything, you know, and he's a master at doing that. Okay, he's a very talented and skillful draftsman, sorry, or and drawer, right? So he's able to reproduce, okay, artistically, flowers, right? Insects, okay, reptiles, right? Butterflies, fish, turtles, okay. He's really, really, really a master, okay, at drawing these elements, right? But he also deals with architecture. He is interested in the human figure, right? In the movement of the body, right? In representing the psychology of the characters. And as I say, he's especially dedicated, right? And especially good at presenting groups of people, right? Okay, interacting, right, with each other, right, and uh, um, showing us, right, a scene, right, from a very personal and original perspective, right. And here you see more presentation of the human body, right. Okay, he's we also should highlight the sense of humor of Hokusai in this series of drawings. You may think, okay, he has substituted, right, the face of the character with just a very basic drawing. But if you take a look, okay, closer to the different drawings, you will notice that what he's actually sketching, right, in the head of the character is not his face, but his hat. Okay, his hat. Okay, seeing from above. Okay, take a look, for example, at the drawing number 3 on the first line in um, the left page, right? You will see there a little bit of the face of the character, right, and his hat, right? Okay, so he had a very interesting, okay, sense of humor, Hokusai, right? And this is part of his art and of his work, right? Um, in this image, okay, from Hokusai manga, you can see, okay, what may be considered, maybe, um, kind of a narrative sequence, in vignettes, right? Okay, so we can possibly talk here about the president, okay, president of contemporary manga too. And as I say, he drew hundreds and hundreds of images. Why of very many different subject matters, right? Why? Because he was selling this book, okay, or this series of books, okay, were directed, were addressed, okay, were destined to be used by people of all ages, from kids to adult people. Okay, so he wanted to touch on all kind of issues and subject matters, right? To get the interest of everybody, right? Um, Women when working, women were washing themselves, right? Okay, and ironic or satiric pictures, right, of people of different kinds, animals, very inventively portrayed, all right, and also, okay, Hokusai have a imaginative, okay, dimension, okay, presenting fantastic situations, fantastic drawings, okay, um, linked also to traditional Japanese ghost stories, right? Okay, and stories of monsters. All right. So it's not only that he copied from reality, but he also invented, okay, invented characters, right? And I wanted to relate these images that you have just seen, from Hokusai manga, to a series of books that he published, right, called 100 Ghost Stories, right, where he illustrated ghost Japanese traditional ghost Japanese ghost stories, right, and he came up with presentations of monsters, okay, and ghosts like these ones, right? Okay, right. These are also um, um, Hokusai's woodblock prints, right? And this can be related to much more modern, okay, representation of monstrous figures nowadays, right? Um, As I say, I encourage you to go on having a look at Hokusai's works of art, because he has very many different um, works of art, right? One of the genres that he also dealt with, and this is a characteristic of basically all Okuyo artists, is the shunga genre. That is basically the presentation of erotic, okay, situations. In this case, and this is also Hokusai um, um, image, right? He presents, okay, two women making love, right? It's a lesbian, okay, lesbian manga. It's called, right? He also illustrated books, right? Um, this is one of his illustrated books, and this also relates uh, to contemporary manga, in a sense that we have like a text and we have an image, right? Okay, okay, linked to what are considered, okay, the very first manga, manga books, okay, the kibyoshi, okay, were picture books, right, where there was a close association between the picture and the text, right? So from 1775 to the early 19th century, these picture books were created in Japan, and for many critics and scholars, they are considered the first comic books, the first manga products, right, in Japan, right? This is a self-portrait of Katsushika Hokusai, and he died at the age of 1889 in 1849. And I think it has a text, that it may be of interest to you. Okay, it says, "From the age of 5, I have had mania for sketching the forms of things. From about the age of 50, I produced a number of designs. Yes, of all I drew, yes, of all I drew prior to the age of 70, there is truly nothing of any great note. At the age of 72, I finally apprehended something of the true quality of birds, animals, insects, fish, and of the vital nature of grasses and trees. Therefore, at 80, I shall have made some progress. At 90, I shall have penetrated even further into the deeper meaning of things. At 100, I shall have become truly marvelous. And at 110, each dot, each line shall surely possess a life of its own. I only beg that gentlemen of sufficiently long life take care to note the truth of my words. Okay, so this was the outlook, okay, on life and on the possibility of evolving, okay, throughout all your life, okay, in your artistic abilities, right? Okay, and um, and and it's one of the many quotes that you have by Hokusai, and I thought it would be interesting for you to read in this presentation. All right, it's just not only Hokusai. There are very many powerful artists. Okay, in this um, artistic movement, okay, of ukiyo-e. Okay, we could say that the second best creator, okay, of ukiyo-e prints is Hiroshige, okay, who was a little bit younger than Hokusai and who was influenced by him. All right, okay. So if you take a look, we're going to show just 3 or 4 of his prints in this presentation, but he's a very noteworthy and talented, right, um, drawer, right, and painter. Okay, in this image you can see like the moon and the waterfall. It's like the moon is like hidden, okay, behind a tree, right, and it shines on the waterfall. Okay, he also has prints of landscapes, right? And in that sense, okay, the influence of Hokusai was really um, um, huge. Okay, these are series, and these are prints of a series called "100 Views of Edo." Edo, as I told you, was the old name of Tokyo, right? And he captures different um, situations, okay, of Tokyo, right? Okay, view from the hilltop of Yushima Tenjin Shrine, okay. I especially like the way Hiroshige deals with whites, right? Okay, with the white color, right? And he's excellent at the compositions, you know, of his creations, right? And as I say, there are very many ukiyo-e artists that we could talk about, right? And but I'm just trying to show you some of them, you know, to give you like a kind of a global image of this movement. Yoshu Shikanobu is a more recent artist. Okay, he worked in the last decades of the 1800s, and his portraits, okay, of Japanese society, of the history, okay, of Japan, okay, since in the 1830s and 1840s, the shogunate prohibited the presentation of the typical, okay, kabuki actors and courtesans, okay, in ukiyo-e. Artists began to look for new issues, right? Okay, and new matters, right? To paint, okay, and and Chikanobu was very good at presenting like this historic, okay, historic dimensions of Japanese history. So um, one important topic, right, that we should deal with in this presentation is the influence, okay, the really important influence that ukiyo-e had, especially in the last decades of the 19th century, the first decade of the 20th century. Okay, there was a whole phenomenon called Japonism, right? Okay, why? Because when um, Japan was forced by the United States to open up, okay, to open up trade with the whole world, right? The ukiyo-e prints began to arrive, okay, in Europe, and Europeans discovered Japanese art, and through Japanese art, Japanese culture, right? Okay, and history and society through the prints of ukiyo-e. I mean, most Europeans hadn't been exposed because of the isolation, okay, that Japan had gone through during the centuries. So Europeans haven't been exposed to Japan culture, okay, lifestyles, okay, paintings, and so on, right? So it was through the ukiyo-e that they began to learn about Japan, okay? Um, Impressionist and post-impressionist influenced by ukiyo-e. You have very many. Cézanne had a series of painting on Mount Saint Victoire, okay? Very similar to the series on Mount Fuji that Hokusai produced, okay? Hokusai and also Hiroshige. Hiroshige has also a series on Mount Fuji, right? Okay. Here you have one print by Hokusai, right? And the same composition you find in a Claude Monet painting. Direct influence, right? Edouard Manet, right? Another artist of the period, okay? Clearly influenced by ukiyo-e prints, right? Edgar Degas, okay? The famous ballerinas by Edgar Degas, okay? Were like impacted, okay, or bear the influence of some of Hokusai's mangas. Toulouse-Lautrec. There's a long series, okay, of artists. These artists were also collectors of ukiyo-e prints, right? As you can see here, Vincent van Gogh in a self-portrait with ukiyo-e prints, okay, on the background, okay. But Van Gogh really liked, okay, Japanese art, okay. And in this slide, you can see Hiroshige's print on the left, okay, and the personal presentation of the same image by Vincent van Gogh. The motif of flowers, trees, okay, ukiyo-e, and Vincent van Gogh trees, okay. Now, having a look at these paintings by Van Gogh, you may see, okay, and you may find you may learn about the original influence that he had, from Japanese art. Gustav Klimt, right? Even Claude Debussy published a book, okay, a record, right, with a reproduction, okay, of the Great Wave of Kanagawa, right? The record was called La Mer, right, in 1905. There was also a great influence, right, of ukiyo-e on Art Nouveau, okay, on French Art Nouveau, right? As you can see in this collection of portraits of women, right? The most famous Art Nouveau painter, okay, portraying female figures was the Czech creator Alphonse Mucha, right? and he was also very much influenced by ukiyo-e prints, right? But it's funny. It's funny because um, mm, first you have the influence that went from Japan to Europe, okay, through ukiyo-e on on Alphonse Mucha, and then later on, okay, contemporary Japanese artists, okay, copied from Alphonse Mucha, right, to develop their own modern presentation of women, okay. So in this slide, you see at the top, okay, Alphonse Mucha's works of art, and at the bottom, a representation of women, okay, by a contemporary Japanese artist, okay. Okay, this is also an influence of Alphonse Mucha, okay, on Masakazu Katsura, is a contemporary artist, right? And many other contemporary paintings. Ukiyo-e doesn't wasn't born out of nothing, okay? Right? There was an artistic tradition, previous to ukiyo-e. Okay, for example, there are a series, there's an artistic movement of painters called Yamato-e, okay, which can be seen as precedents, okay, of the ukiyo-e, right? And also ukiyo-e had an influence on the art that came after, right? Okay, for example, on the Nihonga paintings, okay, on paintings following the Japanese tradition, right? That were done, okay, trying to skip, right? Okay, to avoid the Western influence, and which were done, at the end of the 1800 and beginning of the 1900. For example, here you have a woman, okay, painter woman, one of the first important female Japanese artists called Uemura Shoen, right, who painted pictures very much, okay, under the impact, okay, of ukiyo-e, right? At the beginning of the 20th century, you have a trend of ukiyo-e that try to give new strength to the classical ukiyo-e. The classical ukiyo-e basically disappeared in the last decades of the 1800s. Why? Because for several reasons. The birth of photography, for example, right? Why? Because Japanese artists became more and more interested in Western art and in Western style of painting. Okay, but as I say, in the first decades of the 20th century, right, new artists began to do new work of arts following the ukiyo-e artistic movement, right? And as you will see, for example, in the work of Hasuyo Kawase, okay, and we're just having a look at some of the most important of these artists, okay? These images have a very clear similarity to um, to mm, to contemporary anime, right? Okay, think of the house castle, the house moving castle by Miyazaki, and have a look at this drawing and painting. Mount Fuji from Ohara on Tokaido. I mean, very similar to contemporary anime and manga, right? Yoshida was another important artist of Shin Hanga, right? And same, the connection, it's basically very clear, right? Even even nowadays you have like contemporary artists doing ukiyo-e, okay, in a very different fashion, because I mean the different style, but very interesting. Here you have, for example, the work of James Jean, who does all, who takes care of all the process, the carving, the printing, the drawing. Okay, here James Jean is like carving an image. Okay, then he will print, right, and get a reproduction, very beautiful reproduction like this one. So ukiyo-e is still alive. Artists, contemporary Japanese artists are working, okay, using this old technique. Since I am from Spain, I'm from Malaga, okay, I just wanted to show you the influence of ukiyo-e on Picasso, right? On Picasso, right? um, a modernist, okay? Modernist, okay? We're not talking about Impressionism, Post-Impressionism. Okiye had an influence on modernist painting, for example, on Picasso, right? So here you have Picasso with a Japanese outfit, okay? And this is a typical shunga ukiyo-e print by Koryusai. Okay, but take a look at this drawing by Picasso, right? The influence is obvious, right? To look at this, okay? This is a painting by Picasso. Uh, Another very famous painting by um, creation by Hokusai, The Dream of the Fisherman Wife, right? Now, Picasso also had a look at this image. He reproduced it using his personal style, okay? In drawings such as this one, okay? Or in this kind of paintings, right? Even using the cubism, okay, the cubist style that he created, okay, together with George Braque, right? So this is basically the end of the presentation. Just wanted to finish up giving you some suggestions, just in case you are interested in Hokusai and ukiyo-e. You can read the comic book by Ishinomori, who is also considered one of the most important manga creators, okay, called Hokusai, okay, where he basically is a biography of the author, okay, from his perspective. It's a very interesting one. If you're interested in females creator, right, there's a comic book and also a movie, okay, on the daughter of Hokusai, who also happened to become an artist, right? Miss Hokusai, okay? Her name was Katsushika, her artistic name, Katsushika Oi. And that's all. Just to finish, and finally, a quote by a great scholar, okay, of the 18th century on Hokusai, that says Hokusai is a great designer, as Kipling and Whitman are great poets. He has been called the Dickens of Japan. And we arrive at the end of our presentation. So thank you very much. Thanks, Professor Song, for inviting me to give this lecture. I hope you like it, and I hope you continue studying the work of Hokusai and other ukiyo-e artists. And that's all. See you soon.
Hokusai was the only Japanese person selected in 1998 by the American Life magazine as one of the 100 most influential people of the past millennium. The Great Wave of Kanagawa is regarded by some critics as the second most famous painting in the history of art after the Mona Lisa. This print depicts some boats of fishermen about to be literally overwhelmed and swallowed by a huge wave. It shows human powerlessness in front of nature. And this is the basic lesson we can draw from Katsushika Hokusai's personal and artistic relationship with nature. The natural world is beautiful. We have to value its appearance and charm. However, on the other hand, it is also forceful and wild. And that unyielding essence needs to be respected by all of us. The only way to be in this world is to understand and love nature, to live according to its rules, and learn to coexist with it. Our life and sustainable progress on this planet depends on it.